Hi friends, we'll start with alpha decay. It is one of the three types of radioactivity. It can generally be represented through this equation AXZ, that is a nucleus with mass number A and atomic number Z. When it decays into A minus 4 Y, where Y is some other nucleus, and it emits a 4He2. This is known as alpha particle. It's nothing but helium nucleus. So this is known as parent nucleus and these are known as daughter nucleus. Okay, now for this reaction to happen, there is one condition, that energy should be released. For this reaction to occur spontaneously, it is possible when energy is released. So from Einstein's mass energy equivalence relation, we can say that the mass of products should be less than the mass of reactants. Hence, that mass will be converted into equivalent energy. Got it? So I can write in mathematical form as the energy released as m of x, where mx is the mass of this parent atom or parent nucleus, and my similarly minus m of he, that is alpha particle here, and c square is the square of speed of light. Well, where is this q going? This q is manifested as the kinetic energy of the products if parent was at rest initially, or if parent was moving initially also, then you can say that q is nothing but the raise in kinetic energy or the kinetic energy gained in the process. So if this process is exothermic, actually alpha decay is exothermic, so q will be greater than 0. For an endothermic process, q will be less than 0. Let me give an example for alpha decay. That will be uranium-238 can decay into thorium-234. Thorium's atomic number is 90, and give a alpha particle. This is an example for alpha decay. Now let us solve a problem. The given question is, can uranium-238 give a proton? That is what he asked. Of course, spontaneously. Can it give a proton spontaneously? That is without supplying any external energy. And given information is that the mass of 238U is given as 238.05079 atomic mass units. This is the exact value till 5 decimals. Okay, and alpha particle's mass is given as 4.00260 units. And protactinium, it is 234. Protactinium atomic number is 91, it comes before uranium, and its mass is given as 237.05121. Why is this given? Because if uranium emitted a proton, then this will be the reaction. The product will be 237 Pa, that is protactinium. So say this is the reaction. Now let us calculate the Q for it. So the Q will be mass of reactant, that is mass of uranium minus mass of protactinium minus mass of alpha particle into C square, right? So in this slide all the values are given. When you put values for this, you are going to get the mass defect as minus 0.00825, of course atomic mass units, and you have C square here. Actually I don't have to go further, because from here itself I can say that since C square is anyways positive, my net Q is going to be negative because I have a minus sign here. So what does it mean? Q is negative. It means that the reaction cannot proceed spontaneously. We'll have to supply energy, and how much energy you need to supply? To know that, at least we'll calculate now. It is minus 0.00825 atomic mass units, right? Atomic mass, one atomic mass unit can be written as 931.5 million electron volts by C square. And this is a convenient way so that you can cancel these two terms, and wherever you have one atomic mass unit, you try to write it as 931.5 million electron volts by c square, so that your calculation becomes just a product of two numbers, and finally you are going to get minus 7.68 million electron volts. So you have to supply 7.68 million electron volts to initiate that reaction. So that's not spontaneous. So uranium-238 cannot give a proton spontaneously. Next type of radioactivity is beta decay, and it has two subcategories. Beta minus decay, when it emits a electron, and there is beta plus decay when it emits a positron. What is a positron? Positron is a particle which has same atomic mass as electron but opposite charge, that is charge of a proton. Let us see examples for both of these beta minus and beta plus decays. First, for beta minus, this be the example. This is phosphorus, and when it decays into sulfur, that is 16 atomic number, and gives out an electron. And there is one more product here. This is known as antineutrino. Now let me give the example for beta plus decay also, then I'll explain what is antineutrino. Here the example will be 22 sodium. It gives rise to 22 neon 10 plus positron, and here you have something called as neutrino. This is antineutrino and this is neutrino, and both of these are very small, or possibly even zero. They may have even zero mass. They're such small particles. Then you may ask, why are they generated? First of all, because the products will be emitted with some kinetic energy, right? Hence they will have some spin. This is just to, they are just to balance the spin, so they have something half spin like. They have half integer spin, so that is their function. And one more thing is that they are chargeless, both of them. Hence they are not interacting with any of the matter, so they can pass through anything, and so you can say that they are powerful. Now see what happened in the reaction of beta minus. You see that the atomic number has been increased by 1 and mass number is not changed. So what can you say? It means that a neutron is converted into a proton, and hence here the charge is increased by +1, right? To compensate that, there is an electron also, or in simple terms, beta minus can be written as a neutron gave rise to a proton and electron with antineutrino. Yes, this is nothing but beta minus, and whatever element you may be using as a starting material. And similarly, beta plus can be represented in this way. Proton gives rise to neutron and positron. Here the charge is +1. Here also the charge is +1. Of course, to balance the spin, you have neutrino here. And note that the beta decay as well as alpha decay and gamma decay also, they all follow the law of radioactivity. Like an atom, a nucleus also has some discrete energy levels, and hence it has something called as ground state also and excited states also. Well, between these states, the energy difference between these states is very high when compared to the energy difference between normal atomic energy levels. In atoms, the difference between levels was in electron volts, right? Here it will be somewhere in million electron volts. When a nucleus is in excited state, it spontaneously decays into its ground state or any lower energy state, and then a photon is emitted with energy equal to the difference in two energy levels of that nucleus, and this is called as gamma decay. And the product is a gamma radiation, and it has very short wavelength. I mean, the way of saying it is that the gamma radiation is very powerful. In last video or before last video, we have discussed about this graph. We said that in this area the binding energy per nucleon is pretty much constant, that is somewhere around 8 million electron volts. And we have also seen that when nuclei of this region or this region, when they try to split or combine to get the product in this region, then energy is going to be released, because here the binding energy per nucleon is high, right, in the upper region. Hence, when these nuclei tend to go there, some energy is released, and the energy released will be in the order of million electron volts only, as it is clear from this graph. So A million electron volt, maybe because you have E here, it may appear small to you, but this is very, very big for a nucleus. Just imagine, for one single nucleus, if we are able to get energy in million electron volts in a handful of any matter, in a handful of, or in 1 kg, you may have some millions of atoms and nuclei. And hence, if all the energies or all the contributions of individual nuclei are combined, that can give literally devastating energy. For example, if burning of, uh, for example, if 1 kg of coal is burnt, what energy can you expect? It is somewhere 10 power 7 joules. If 1 kg of uranium is involved in fission reactions, nuclear fission reactions, then the energy evolved is 10 power 14 joules. It is 10 million times greater. We have seen in the last video that when a nucleus splits into daughter nuclei, then you call it something as nuclear fission reactions. That is, when splitting takes place, it is fission, right? Let us take some examples. Say when a neutron is combined with uranium 235, you will get uranium 236. Well, this is fine, but this can split, right? And this can split into what? There are many possibilities. One possibility is that it can split in this way: 144 uh, barium 56, and of course the same uranium 236 can give rise to different set of products also. That is 140 xenon 54 plus 94 strontium 38 plus 2 neutron. What I want to say is that new possibilities emerge when we bombard nuclei with other nuclear particles such as proton or neutron or other particles, etc. Of course, energy released in each of these reactions will be different. It depends on the products also. Why? Because take this example. If binding energy per neutron for say of nucleus of mass number 240 is 7.6 MeV, million electron volts. If this splits into two daughter nuclei of each of 120 mass number, say, then you get some other product, okay? But it has, I mean, the product has the EBN, binding energy per nucleon, as 8.5 million electron volts. Okay, so the gain in nuclear energy per nucleon is about 0.9 million electron volts, right? If this is per nucleon, the total gain in binding energy will be 240 into that one, right? Because this was the mass number of parent nucleus. So it will be 216. You've seen that neutrons are released in these reactions, right? And you also know that neutrons are needed to start the initial reaction. Observe this. So what happens is, when neutrons are released, the initial reaction is again initiated. So the rate becomes faster even. So the more the products are, more the reactions go forward. This is because one of the products is also one of the reactants. That is why this happens, and this is known as chain reaction. And if it is not controlled, it can give explosive energy output, and that's nothing but nuclear bomb. And let us see one example of nuclear fusion also. Nuclear fusions are the reactions that take place in stars and give us energy. This is how energy is generated in stars. For fusion to take place, the daughter nuclei must be able to come so close enough so that the attractive short range nuclear force is able to affect them. And so they should overcome the Coulomb barrier, that is repulsion between protons and protons. So that Coulomb barrier actually depends on charges, radius of interacting nuclei. And to overcome that Coulombic barrier, uh, you need to have kinetic energy, initial kinetic energy for the parent nucleus, and that is provided if you have more temperature. For example, inside temperature of sun is about 1.5 into 10 power 7 Kelvin. This is what drives the reaction. That's it for now. Keep watching. Bye.